I know very little about tennis, so I'm going to hand over to Sarah to interview Judy for us, because she knows a lot more about it than what I do. So if we can welcome Judy.
Thanks, Kate. And before we move on to Judy, I just want to say a massive thank you to AUB Group and to Kate. A massive round of applause for Kate for pulling it together. She's an awesome sister-in-law, but she's also a fantastic person, and she's doing a lot for women, so I'm not loud enough?
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Listen, she is. Don't worry.
That's
We could do it
No,
with
she's
Dan and
mic'd.
Mike, actually.
She's mic'd, she's ready to go. And to be even mentioned as a pioneer next to Judy Dalton is something that's truly remarkable. So thanks, Kate. But thanks for being here today with us, Judy. Judy raced over from Kooyong to fit us in, and which just shows that she's very passionate about tennis and the women's game and pushing forward the gender equity, and we will get there. But what I want
Now, hang on, before you start asking me questions, can I just say something in relation to what you're...
Go right ahead.
It's very interesting because Judy Murray and I did a women's equity questionnaire, I suppose the right thing, in Scotland, in Edinburgh, because my family live over there. My granddaughters go to this school where Judy Murray mentors the sports mistress. She's just fantastic, Judy. And we were talking about all sorts of things, which we will talk about, but there was a guy who got up and he said, I've been doing the coaching course, and he said, I've done all the right things, and he said, I've qualified, and he said, but I have nowhere to go to get anybody to help me to be able to coach women and to know, or girls, and to know what to do with them. And he said, Judy, where do I go? Now, Judy has a coaching program in Scotland, and I think she's trying to do it here too, I'm not sure.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
But it was a very interesting question, because here was a guy who had enough, I suppose, gumption, because he was quite nervous about asking the question. But Judy said, look, I have somewhere where I can recommend you to go, because he said it's really important, because he said he's been watching all these male coaches trying to coach these girls, and he said they don't understand. He said they don't understand what it's all about. And I thought that was really, and so it was sort of relevant to what you were saying about trying to get, men coaches to understand how to coach the girls. And he said, particularly, it's fine, when they're starting off. He said, that's good. But he said, then maybe when they reach sort of 14 or 15, he said, then you've got to know the person and you've got to know how to deal with everything. And he said, I have no idea. And he said, I've asked everybody. He said, nobody helped me. So that was irrelevant, but I just thought
It is relevant because it talks about why we needed to start the WTCA in the first place, and it's been great. The WTA too has actually been really supportive, which has been nice.
Good.
Which is what we're going to start with. So as we know, Judy was a member of the original 9, and you really took a big risk when you put your hand up to do that. And what did that feel like?
Well, as you said about the tournament in Los Angeles, there was 8 of the top 10 women in the world, and there was 3 of the top 20 men in the world, and the prize money for the men was 8 times ours. And Gladys Hellman, who I'll talk about a bit later, went to Jack Kramer and said, look, this is not right. And among those 8, I might say, was Billie Jean and Nancy Ritchie and Rosie Casals. So, that's pretty good, especially for the Americans. And so he said, no, we're not going to change our mind. So I think our prize money was going to be like $750, I think it was, between something. And so Gladys said, well, we're not going to play. And they said, oh, fine. So then we did a survey amongst all the people at the US Open, and we asked, especially men, would they go and watch women-only tournaments? And it was really very surprising, because we expected to get a really low percentage, and it was 48%. And we asked why, and the reason was that they said we can associate our game with the women's game, whereas we can't associate it with the men's. And they said, yes, we would really like to go and watch the women. So Gladys then went, I'm sort of kind of preempting your questions.
That's great.
Gladys then went to Joseph Coleman, who was the head of Philip Morris, and he knew her very well. And so she said, would you give us some money? This is what we'd like to do. And they were sort of reluctant, but we then went to Houston Racquet Club, which is where Gladys Hellman lived. Shall I stay?
Keep going. I think this is great.
Gladys owned World Tennis, which was a tennis magazine those days. But apart from the fact of having absolute passion for tennis, she was also, her husband was head of one of the huge oil companies. So they had money, and they had lots of connections, which was fabulous. So they went to the Houston Racquet Club, and Dolores, now you're testing my memory. Anyway, she was president there of the women's tennis, and she was fantastic. And they said, we will have the tournament there for you, for the 9 of you, and we will give you, I think it was something like $2,500. And we thought, well, $2,500 is much better than $750. So we then Gladys then went back to Philip Morris and said, would you do something? And they said, yes, seeing you've got a club and you've got somebody supporting you, we'll give you $5,000 more. So we had a total prize money of $7,500 for the first tournament. So as 8 of us played in it, and that was sort of the beginning of the tournament. And we signed for $1. We went to Gladys's home, and she said, oh, sorry, I should backtrack. After we saw the survey, and they said that, that we were convinced that people would come and watch us, we then went to ask all the top players, would they be interested? Well, that was like drawing blood out of a stone. Like, that was just impossible, because the top players weren't interested, because they didn't want to sacrifice anything, because we didn't know what the future would be, we didn't know what would happen to us, but we were all prepared to take a chance. So it ended up that there was 9 of us who were prepared to take the chance. We then met with Gladys Hellman in Houston, and we signed for $1. And I've still got my $1. I think I'm the only one that's got the signed $1. So it's worth quite a lot of money, I would have said.
Sure.
And then we played the tournament in Houston, and I lost to Rosie in the final. I beat Billy on the way, and I won the doubles, and I think I won out of that $7,500 something like $2,800. Never won so much money in my life. And that was the start of it. And then we went to Philip Morris, and we met with Joseph Coleman. We said, look, we'd really like to be able to do a tour. Where do you think we could start? So our first tournament was in San Francisco at the beginning of 1971. And I think it was $10,000, yes. And we played, and the crowds came in, it was fabulous. Like, they were just so good. And that year, Billy, we had a lot of tournaments when we went around the country. And that year, Billy won $100,000. She was the first female ever in any sport to win $100,000. Now, you go back, that was 1971, so goodness me, I don't know what it'd be worth today.
Kate, do you know?
Do you know what it'd be, Kate?
Check Google.
Yeah. And what happened was, what we did was, there was 8 of us, and we'd play, and they had a draw. We had a draw and everything. And then what would happen is the people who lost in the first round, they would then go on to the next tournament. We had to pay our own fares and everything in those days. So we'd go on to the next tournament, when we'd do promotion in shopping centres, and then we'd do a women's clinic to get all the people in to watch us. And then as everybody lost, they would then come in to the tournament. So sometimes, and after 4 weeks, if somebody had not got past the first round in that, we then said, right, we've got to do something about this. So we all got her on the court, and everybody had an input. and said, look, why don't you try this, or why don't you try that? How about doing that? How about doing this? And then we'd make sure, it wasn't fixed or anything, but we'd make sure that because we'd all support her, that she won a round, you know, so that then it went to so then she wasn't alone, you know, being like losing in the first round anymore. But we worked so hard because we had to promote ourselves, and we learned how to do promotions, and we went into supermarkets, and it was quite interesting because I should also go back, because why Philip Morris were interested was that there was a cigarette just being launched called Virginia Slims. I don't you remember? And it was, you know, the Ginny who was the flapper girl, and she had the long cigarette and everything. And so for them it was actually a perfect timing, and we were lucky. And so we basically, that's how it became the Virginia Slim Circuit.
Oh, right.
And they had we had the colours, and our Ted Tinling designed all our clothes and our jackets and everything, and they were all the colours of the cigarette, you know. Could you imagine it happening today? And it was quite interesting because we had, in a few supermarkets, somebody asked me a few years ago, did I have any problems with people coming up and saying, you know, are you a smoker? Because none of us smoked. And do you know, sort of how do you all feel about it? And we never had any questions, but we went to Minnesota, I think it was, and Karen Kransky, the late Karen Kransky, she and I went into, now Karen was a very tall girl, I don't know whether any of you remember it, but she was a very tall girl, very good at doubles, but she's very shy, and so I went with her because I'm not shy apparently. And so we went into this supermarket, and we were walking around, and I'm saying, this is great, Karen, we're promoting everything, and it was all lovely, the people were wonderful. And this one lady came up to us, and she really gave it to us, and Karen just broke down. She just couldn't handle it. And I said, look, you know, I can see your point of view and I appreciate it, but, you know, for us, it's a chance to promote women, and, you know, we're not getting an opportunity, and Philip Morris haven't done it for that purpose, but it's an opportunity for us to be able to do it. So basically that's how it all started.
And why did you take the risk? I mean, it was a massive risk for you.
Oh, it was a massive risk. Well, it was a massive risk for all of us, and especially, I'm sure, hopefully you all know Kerry Reid, do you? Or Kerry Melville, it was. Well, yeah, I mean, she was much younger than me, and for her it was a big risk. We had three younger girls in the original 9 who really did take a risk but we didn't know, Sarah, though, when we did it, what the implications were, but we were pretty sure that we were going to get our throats cut, for sure, especially by the USTA. But we didn't know that Tennis Australia, as it is now, would do to us either. Right. But anyway, so Kerry and I were the two that signed up. But and so we just decided that we had to take a chance to do it. And you know, for Billy to take that chance was a huge thing for her, because she was sort of on the top. But then she couldn't do it without any of us. And we were all taking chances as well, because we all had opportunities to win Grand Slams and to win other tournaments. So it wasn't as if any of us, you know, had nothing to lose, you know, like if we were first round as well, it wouldn't have mattered. And so we decided that was what we were going to do, and we were going to try and get equality in it. We didn't know whether we'd ever get equal prize money. I mean, I don't think any of us envisaged what it is today. No way in God's earth. I mean, if we had have, mind you, Kate, we would have needed you, because we should have said we'll have 1% of the prize money for our super, because we never got anything. We would have been fine, wouldn't we? Yes, but we never thought about that. But there's one funny thing. Opportunities come, you know, in these sort of things. And when we played in San Francisco, we had this man come. Now, I don't know whether do you know Rosie Casals, all of you? But you wouldn't know her personality. She's very funny girl. And we were playing in the tournament in San Francisco, and this gentleman came, three of them came up to us, and one of them said, "Oh, we admire what you're doing, and it's fabulous." And I said, "Oh, that's great." And he said, yes, we've got a business proposition to put to you. And we said, oh yes, well, you know, none of us really knew too much about business. I mean, I'd done accountancy, but that was about as far as I did. And so he said, yes, we're opening a store on the corner. Have you any of you been to San Francisco? Yeah. Well, you know where the cable car goes up the hill? Well, there was a store on the corner there. And he said, we're opening up a store on the corner. And I said, God, that's a fantastic position. That's like a prime position. And he said, oh, yes, he said. And he said, this business will be fabulous. He said, and we want you all to invest in it. And I said, well, that's wonderful, but we haven't got any money to invest in it. We haven't made very much money. And he said, oh, it won't be very much. And I said, well, how about you giving us a little, you know, how about you giving us something? I said, which would be wonderful. And he said, well, we're not sure whether it's going to be successful or not. So he said, we can't really do that. And I said, well, and Rosie says, well, maybe we could put together some money, you know, we could maybe put together 5,000, we could give it to you. And he said, oh, yes, well, so anyway, so we asked all the others and we said, what do you think? And they said, oh, no, it's... So we went back to him and said, no, we're really sorry. Anyway, I hate to tell you, but it turned out to be the first McDonald's story. So I need to be sitting here. I could have flown you anywhere, Sarah. So it just shows you. So anyway, so sorry, I'm diverting from that, from what we've done.
I should just throw these out the window. But that's okay. As coaches, we've got to be ready to deal with all situations.
Yes, sorry, thank you.
It's totally fine. So you mentioned that there were a few players that were really superstars at the time that didn't put their hand up, and you found, well, you were the original 9. How did you include them after they didn't step up for you? How did you create that environment?
Well, Gladys was very good. She when we did the first year and it proved to be successful, well, it's like anything, you know, when it's successful, everybody wants to be part of it.
Yeah,
so, of course, then the other top players wanted to come in then because they could see. They weren't prepared to take the chance in the first place, though. And it was a risk, but that's why Billy, you know, is so admired by everybody, and I think it showed in the, maybe not in the film, if you saw the film, maybe not so much, but, you know, she's always been prepared to put her name on the line and everything. And it starts, I have to tell you this too, sorry. She was 12 and she went to the Los Angeles Tennis Club where they wouldn't have us, you know, where Jack Ranger said, no, we're not going to give you any more money. And I might tell you, when we played there, I had a run-in with the tournament director and I stormed out the thing because they wouldn't give us any money. We won the doubles, but they'd given the men money, but they wouldn't give us any money. So I shut the door, but I didn't sort of kind of shut it. I slammed it and it fell off its hinges. and the man, Perry Jones, said, you'll never be invited back here again. I said, I don't ever intend to come back here again. But aside from that, Billy went to the Los Angeles Tennis Club because they said she showed some promise. Now, she came from a, you know, not an affluential family at all, affluent family, and the LA Tennis Club was only film stars and, you know, people like that. And she went and her mother made her all her clothes, and she made her shorts and the shirt and all that sort of thing. So she didn't have all the glamorous outfits that all the other children had. And she went there, and because she was so good, she started to play there, and they invited her there, and she played in the teams. Anyway, a photographer came along one day and said, we want to take a photograph of all the people in the teams. So anyway, so they all lined up, and Billy was there in the middle, and the photographer and all the officials said, oh no, we're not having this girl, she's got her shorts on. We're not having her in the film. She said, you can't be part of the thing. So she said, from that day, she said, I was determined I was going to be number one, and she said, I was going to show them that I was as good as everybody else. And that's what started her. Sorry, I'm deviating everyone.
Wow.
Sorry.
Well, I think we would all agree that they're really great stories, and I love hearing them. I'm getting mesmerised by the stories. I might lose my track.
Sorry.
But interestingly enough, so you were Dunlop was your sponsor
Yes.
at the time. Tell us about what happened with
Oh, well,
Dunlop when you did this.
when we did all this, it was massive. The USTA didn't want to know us. They said we will never play in the States again in any tournaments. And then Kerry and I came home to supposedly play the tournaments here, and we were banned. We couldn't use any equipment. Dunlops were told that they weren't to give us any rackets, no shoes, nothing. We couldn't play in any of the tournaments here. We weren't allowed to do anything. And the New Zealand Federation were really good. They said to us we could go over and play in New Zealand. So we went over and played in New Zealand, and we played against Yvonne and Leslie Hunt and I can't remember a couple others. Well, they got into trouble for playing against us. The New Zealand Federation got trouble because they invited us over to play in the tournament. And then we came back and we didn't know whether we would be able to play the tournament in San Francisco because it was all set up. And in those days, you have to remember there was no emails or texts or anything like that, so everything had to be written, and Gladys kept telegramming me and all that sort of thing, which I've got the whole thing. I've still got all the paperwork, yeah. So, and I gave it to one of the guys who's going to write a story about it. So, but anyway, and that's aside. And so we didn't know what we were going to do. So we got in touch with the International Tennis Federation and said, look, this is ridiculous. We signed for $1, and it's open tennis. Like, why are we persecuted? Because the USTA didn't like what we'd done. So anyway, we just persevered, and thank goodness the ITF, in their wisdom, said this is ridiculous. You will be able to play all the Grand Slams. So the only one that we couldn't play that year was the Australian Open because they wouldn't let Kerry and I play. And so we went away, and then we played the first tournament in January, and then we did all the 7 tour. I think we had 7 tournaments under the Virginia Slims banner, and then we were able to play all the others.
Wow.
So it was pretty hard because if we'd been suspended and not been allowed to play, basically that would be the end of everybody's career. That would have been the finish. Billy would never have been able to have gone on to do what she did.
It seems crazy that they did that.
Yeah.
But one of the things that's changed over time is that the tour, most people probably don't realise this. I mean, it's a great life and it's a great experience. But the girls aren't as tight as a niche group as they used to be. They're not super friendly. And what do you think has changed? Why is that?
Oh, I think it's because you've got. I mean, our day we didn't have anybody to help us. We had to help one another. I mean, will I tell the story about Nottingham?
Yeah, tell us the story. That one's awesome.
We did a Virginia Slims tournament in Nottingham in England, and it's a grass court tournament. It was one of the ones that they used to play before Wimbledon, and so we played there. And on the Saturday, Billie Jean and I were the only 2 left because the others had all gone down. And so we thought, what are we going to do? So what we did is we went out and we practiced with one another. We went back into the dressing room, we put our tennis clothes on, we had our lunch, we went out and played the final. Could you see that happening today?
Probably not.
And we helped one another, she said, oh, maybe you could do that too. And so the camaraderie, I mean, I don't see them very often, but I see them as often as I can. And when we had the Battle of the Sexes reunion, they invited all of us to the premiere, which was just lovely. And it was the first time we'd been together for, about 7 years, I think, because previously to that we'd had an anniversary in Charleston, and all of us came. And it's still nice because a couple of them aren't very well. So for them to all come to the film premiere was pretty nice. It was a pretty nice thing to do.
Yeah, I think that they don't appreciate that later in their life that they're going to want to know those people that they had that experience with. I've sent Alexa to a tournament in Mexico once that I couldn't go to, a WTA, and she couldn't actually find anyone to warm her up. And then the tournament had practice partners in Morocco, and he forgot to come to the tournament. And so the dynamics really changed, and I think if through leadership and with the founding, with the original 9 members still involved in tennis, if we can influence those girls to realise that their life after tennis is so much more than their life actually in tennis, it would definitely make a change. One of the things that we wanted to talk about this morning was the regular debate that goes on about why people thinking that women shouldn't get the same amount of prize money as men when they only played 3 sets versus 5. What's your view on that?
I get asked this all the time, and I have my answer is to how do you class quality with quantity? And you know, at Wimbledon last year, for instance, they had women's matches of 3 sets, which were fabulous matches. And then you had 2 matches which involved Kevin Anderson and with Roger Federer, which went forever and ever. And then you also had Anderson and Isner, and nobody wanted to watch it in the end. I don't think the 2 of them wanted to play in the end. I think they just wanted it to be finished. And you know, and there's so many matches, and it was interesting because at this conference with Judy, somebody asked her that, and she said that Andy and the boys would much rather play 3 sets, which are great sets, rather than playing the 5 sets, and especially at Grand Slams when they've got to play 7 singles matches if they're going to win the thing. And then by doing that, they would also play in the doubles, which would elevate the doubles thing. And I think when I don't know whether you watched the Optima Cup, but you saw what unbelievable matches the mixed doubles were because you had the best players playing.
Yeah.
And nowadays they degrade all the doubles and the mixed doubles because you've only got people who are double specialists or something who never play singles, and you don't get the best players. I mean, when we all played, in our day, we had to play everything. We played singles, doubles and mixed in all the Grand Slams. You know, we'd be on the courts forever. And it was, and like McEnroe never practiced because he said, I don't need to practice, because he said, I play singles and doubles. He said, why should I need to practice?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
You know, so...
Yeah, well, staying with the
Sorry,
prize
I'm
money.
sorry, I
You know, staying with the prize money, I mean, that's a great point. Quality, you know, we think,
Well,
well, it's
I
5 sets, but it might be absolutely dreadful, and 3 great sets.
I mean, yes, obviously you can get some terrible women's matches, but then, you know, if Serena's going to play somebody who's just got through and just qualified, well then obviously she's probably going to really make mincemeat of it, but then that's not always the case.
Happens with Rafa. He's won
Well,
one
exactly.
love and love in his first
That's
round.
right. So
That rarely makes the conversation. With the prize money, do you mind me asking how much money you made in the 1968
when I got to the
final?
final, right. The prize money was $1,500 to the winner. Laver got $1,500. Tony Roach got $750. Our prize money was half of that, so that was $750, which Billie Jean got, and I was due to get $375. Oh, pounds, sorry, pounds, not dollars, pounds, sterling, sorry. And Tennis Australia wouldn't let me have it because they didn't recognise it. Still, after 2 years of open tennis, they didn't recognise. So I got £150 for 3 weeks in London, and that was it.
And you shared with me a little story about Billie Jean.
Oh, so about maybe 4 or 5 years ago, we went upstairs into the members, and I said, "Oh, can we go and have some lunch? I've got something to tell you." And she said, "Yes." So anyway, we went upstairs, and we were sitting there, and I said, "I just thought I'd share with you." She said, "I never got any prize money for getting to the final when I played you." And she said, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "No," I said, "Tennis Australia wouldn't let me have it." And she said, "Oh, I didn't know that." And I said, "Yeah, that's why I'm asking you to lunch." And I said, "And you're paying for it." And she said, but she said, "I haven't got any money." I said, "Yes, you have." I said, "You keep money in your socks down here under there." I said, "Just get it out." And I said, "You can pay." So she said, "Yes, I'll willingly pay."
So Judy, the final question that I didn't ask you is maybe we could take opening bids for that $1. There's only one existing dollar left in there. What do you think that would be worth today?
I don't know. I've got no idea.
Anyone got an idea?
Yeah.
What do you think that would be worth? I reckon a couple. I think it should be at least worth a couple of million. But we'll defer back to Kate because you're very good with your numbers. Judy, it's been an absolute pleasure for us to have you here this morning. I'm sure that there are some questions that people would like to ask. Open it up to Anyone who would like to ask Judy anything, absolutely. So,
Yes, sir.
Congratulations, Judy,
Thank
on
you
a
very much.
lifetime of commitment
Thank
to
you.
women's tennis. And I'd like to talk about that lifetime too to you, and to the audience really. Inequality is a lifetime business, you know, and whilst we spoke a lot today about younger people, this goes on all of your life. I'd like you to tell us how you feel now that what could improve things now for particularly, younger people, but women of your age, women who have fought the hard fought, gone through, they're still involved in tennis, yet we'll see men get the recognition that the women don't get. How do we promote women, and what do you see as the main problems that women of your age, particularly when we think about women in super and that sort of thing? It's easy in our careers to say we're fighting and we're getting things done, but it's later in life also that we've got to be concerned about. So what do you think are the main challenges?
It's difficult. It's difficult, especially in the tennis thing, because it's such a. Sorry about the man doing this. It's a very male chauvinist thing here, and it's very difficult. I mean, we have a woman president now at Tennis Australia, but that is absolutely unique. I mean, after I finished playing, I went in and worked for Tennis Australia, supposedly looking after the women's, or trying to promote the women's tennis. And I wasn't allowed to go to any board meetings. I wasn't allowed to go to any dinners. Nothing. Even though I was part of all the thing. Neil Fraser was looking after the men's side. I was supposed to be looking after them. I couldn't go to anything. And they used to come to me, the secretary, who was John Andrews, that lovely man, kept saying, "Oh, Judy, I hope you understand that you're not allowed in to the meetings, and you can't come to the dinner because it's all male." I said, "John, that's fine." I said, "Someday that'll change." We're still trying to change it.
Yes.
I mean, we're getting there, but it's very difficult.
Yeah, it's a lifetime.
It's a very difficult thing. And of course, as for super, I think that's a very pertinent thing, because for us, we didn't get any super at all. The players do get super. But we didn't get any for the reason that they told us that because we hadn't invested in it, we couldn't have it. I said, how could we have invested in it when we didn't have any money? We hadn't made any money to invest in it. But I think that there's some movement going on, that they're trying to do something about it now. But if we get anything, and one of my approaches was, which was about 3 years ago, when Katrina Adams, who is I've known for a long time, she was president of the USTA, which was a huge accomplishment for her. That was terrific, and she's done a wonderful job. I said to her, you know, each of the Grand Slams should give even 0.5% of their total prize money to us, and to put it in to the super, so that we could all benefit, and it would be an acknowledgement of what we've done over the years. And I said, maybe you could approach the as the USTA president and go to Wimbledon. Well, that just went down like a lead balloon. Now they're trying to do it again. They're going to try and have another go and see what's happening. So now they've come back to me and said, could you speak to the presidents again? And I said, oh well, I'll try. But there's some money in there, and if it works out, I think we'll get. Don't hold your breath, Alison or Maureen, any of you down there. You might get lunch out of me.
Judy, shout everyone next year.
I think we're going to get $5,000. I think it is. So if it happens, but you know, it's a battle. It's difficult, and I don't know how you do it. I think all we can do is do what we're trying to do, and trying to promote it and show what's happening.
Okay, Kate, that's important with the inclusion, right? For some of my tennis crew, we all know about diversity and inclusion, but that inclusion piece is, you've got to keep everyone part of the conversation, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the key challenges. And now that, you know, we often talk about diversity and having diverse backgrounds and different people and different genders, but the piece that's always seems to be missing is the inclusion piece, which is, making sure that everybody does feel part of something, and that just because you're not playing professionally anymore doesn't mean that you haven't made a major contribution to the sport and shouldn't be recognised for that. I mean, yesterday when I was doing the research around pay equity in Australia, I couldn't believe that, we only have to go back 30 years and, we have the breadwinner component in
well,
in
but I'll
salaries
tell you something. When I started when we played the Virginia Slims, in those days they had bank managers, whatever they were. And I used to be able to go into the Commercial Bank of Australia, into the head office, into the bank manager, and when I was playing, I used to send back all my money all the time to David so that we could pay off the house. And when I came home, the bank manager invited me in to have a cup of tea, and I said, "Is that all I'm going to get, a cup of tea, Mr. Jen?" And he basically said, "You can be one of the first people to have a cheque account of your own." He said, "Normally, we would have to have your husband's permission to do that."
wouldn't go down well in my house.
and so that was pretty thing, but that was what it was like, and so
Well, if you're in the public service, you would have had to resign your job.
That's exactly if you got married. That's right. Yes.
Other questions?
Yeah. Yeah. How about a man asking you a question?
No pressure.
No.
Firstly, to both of you, congratulations on your contribution in the women's tennis.
Thank you.
My question, I got one for both of you. The first one, Judy, is around the original 9. I understand it was the Americans and the Australians that made up that 9.
Yes.
So my question was, I guess, is there a reason why the other countries weren't involved, and were they scared? And my second question is for Sarah around WTCA in terms of what's on the horizon, what are some big things on the plate at the moment?
Well, to your first question, yes, basically, I think Americans and Australians and British and French, the 4 Grand Slam things were basically. Sorry, that's my phone. Sorry.
Total pro.
Sorry, I never turned. I'm not very good with
At least
I'm not very good with all this. Sorry. Oh, sorry.
They've bugged the room.
Thank you.
Jack Kramer.
They're going to fire you, Judy.
And I think that also because it was an American company, Virginia Slims, and 2 of the people who were good players, 3 of them actually, were from England and France, and they didn't want to take the chance of this. So therefore, there was basically only us, and there was no. Oh look, we now day the Russians played, but there was no really continental ones. Czechoslovakia came in maybe in the 67s, like Helena Sukova's mother played, but there wasn't the number that there is now. So logically, it was probably B that it was Americans, and it might well have just been the Americans if it hadn't been for Kerry and I who were prepared to take the chance to join it, But it was just the climate in those days, and I think probably that was why we had a lot of trouble with equality, because you had the Australians and the Americans who are very. I hope there's no Americans in here. So
There's 2. My boss.
Sorry. This is no offence, sorry. But, the American men are very strange about things, and they want to feel that. I mean, I don't know whether you saw the Battle of the Sexes, but that was absolutely, the portrayal of Kramer and all of those officials was absolutely accurate, absolutely to a T. And that is exactly how they were, and so so I think despite everything, and if we hadn't had Gladys Hellman, we wouldn't have been able to have done it. We were all prepared to put our careers on the line, but she was the one that got the money for us, and she hopefully she got credit in the film, and hopefully I don't know that she got the credit she should have really, but she did so much for women's tennis. I mean, look, she did it, yes, for herself as well, but she did it for a good cause, and it turned out to be wonderful for us. She loved doing it. She loved being the prime person, you know. That was her personality, and but in her heart of heart, she had such a passion for tennis, and she was happy to do it. So, is that fun?
Yeah.
On our side, one of the things that I would just like to share is we are changing the conversation a little bit. We're fairly much risk takers at the WTCA, and this year I want to make sure that we include conversations around child abuse, speakers who come up and talk about that. We had a woman who talked about being a rape survivor for 5 minutes last year, and when it is a very close kind of male-dominated environment, some of those conversations are a little bit uncomfortable. So we saw how that went, and it came across really well. Also, a speaker who used to be on the Pro Tour, a WTA player, she's sober now, and, you know, she's lecturing on addiction and sharing with coaches about how they can overcome their own addiction if they've got athletes that may look like they are heading down that road. They're the types of conversations that we want to bring in. Typically, tennis conversations are very in a tight box about tennis, and we're confident that having those uncomfortable but comfortable conversations will make change. So that's really what we want to do this year, is to open up to more issues that are involved in life, but also that tennis can bring into the general conversation.
Well, I think you know, Dokic is a classical example.
Exactly.
But there's many more things. I mean, there was last year there was she's a Romanian girl who played. She hadn't played for 3 years, 4 years. I've forgotten her name.
Buzinescu. Michaela Buzinescu.
Yeah, I think so. And she, I don't know how it came about. I don't know how I met her, but we were talking about things, and I said, you know, have you been injured? And she said, yes, she had been, but she said, partly going back, she said, due to my parents, because she said, when she didn't win, she said her father locked her in a cage and wouldn't let her out. And
it happens a lot on the tour, actually.
People have no idea what it's like. I mean, Dokic's story, I mean, she's fantastic to have written it, and hers was a horrific one, but there's been a lot of other ones that people don't ever hear about it, and it's just, and it's very difficult because, as Sarah said, for people to speak about it and also for the tennis things to do something about it is very difficult. I mean, when I'm sorry, I keep taking over.
That's right, I usually take over from everyone.
But when Elena played in the junior tournaments here, I was coaching a girl from Hungary, so I was sort of involved in a few of the tournaments that she played in, and I stood beside Demir when he actually physically, you know, hit her and everything, and you know, I said to Tennis Australia, I'm prepared to go into court and say what I had. And Elena would come up to me and say, Judy, you mustn't say anything. She said it would make it much worse for me. She said, you just can't say anything. She said, I can't do anything. She said, I have to live with it. And Leslie Barry, who coached her, you know, to get to where she was, Leslie said that she didn't have any idea of half of the stuff that went on. She said she hid it so well. And now Leslie saw her day in and day and travelled with her and still didn't know. And eventually, you know, Bill just said to Leslie, look, you can't afford to, if Elena starts going down, he said, Demir might have a go at you, and he said, I won't have that.
Yeah,
you know?
That's why the conversation is so important, because as influencers, coaches, we need to know, we need to recognise those things and how to handle mental health situations.
Yeah.
So that's where the direction.
I think the WTA and you are doing a great job though, because it's changed so much, and I think that now, you know, now things are getting identified much better.
Well, at least now we're having the conversation, which is the beginning. Does anyone have any other questions?
Sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
Sarah, you said earlier about, I've got a pretty loud voice.
She had.
You said earlier about getting Judy to talk and go on a tour. Yesterday, Judy was giving an exhibition in Manly, and I get a phone call, and she's said to the driver, she's in Sydney, she said, what bridge am I on? And guess what it was? Sydney Harbour.
Sometimes you forget where you are. Forget when I look out the window what city I'm in on the plane.
Get her a map, man. I think she might need it.
Judy, I'll get you. I'll plug Google Maps into your
Thanks
phone.
very much. I've never been any good in Sydney. I have to tell you, I've been going there since I was about 16, and I have no clue whether I'm going north, south, east, or west. I haven't got a clue.
It's just a mess, that
Yeah,
place,
it's
isn't it?
not like
Melbourne?
here. No.
Thank you. Any final questions?
I've got one last question.
Yes. Oh, it's lovely. Look at the men are here. Yes, thank you. You don't have to stand up. It's really all right.
He might have wanted to stretch his legs.
Did the men, when they broke away from amateur in 1965, did that lead the way? That led the way to professional tennis being paid.
Yeah. Well, they started the ATP then. That's how the ATP started.
And your inspiration, would that have come from a bit of that too? That they
No.
They set out to fight.
I'll say no straight away.
Did it have any influence at all?
No.
They put their careers online. They
No.
made no money.
Oh, they made money, don't worry. No.
As amateurs.
Under the table.
Under the table, they made a lot of money. Don't worry. The men have never ever suffered. Never ever suffered. Don't worry.
Funny thing.
You don't have to feel sorry for them, I assure you.
Sorry about that.
No. But it was basically the same principle. I mean, seriously, they didn't have to. They didn't sacrifice what we did. No.
And what did inspire you then? What made you guys
Well,
just do it?
because of the attitude of Kramer and basically that one tournament of saying, here we are. We were going to present the best, with the exception of 2 players, the top 10 players in the world. Okay. In a tournament, and there you've got 3 of the top 20 men in the world, and yet there was 8 times the prize money, and we just said, this is just ridiculous.
So it was like enough is enough. Was it?
Yes, that's exactly right. And everywhere we'd been, they didn't know who the heck. Nobody knew who we were. I mean, and Tennis Australia, with all due respects to Margaret, who won so many, they didn't really, in a way, the general public didn't really. Well, they knew who she was, but they didn't respect her like sort of like.
If she was a male player.
No, nowhere near. I mean, and now. Well, sure, I won't go on about the court. I think I won't say anything.
Next year we'll talk about
it was one of those things. So it wasn't. That was that one. The one tournament was basically the culmination of a long period of sort of having to play tournaments and sort of say, look, we'd like some prize. We'd like some prize money.
Like a few bucks.
Yes. And,
Like to eat dinner.
We would, yes. Well, that happened a few times when we didn't. But you went through that too.
Slept at the airport.
Yes,
I slept
that's
at the train station one night. Sam Stokes has made $20 million.
Yes,
We slept at the airport. We slept at a train station in Japan, and they thought we were homeless. The Japanese came and brought us lunches.
Well,
They really did. They came. We guarded ourselves with bags and slept on the ground, and they brought us food. They're kind in Japan.
Well, I was telling somebody the other day, Leslie Barry had won the French Championships, I think it was twice at this stage. She was engaged to Bill, who'd won the Australian Championships. She booked a hotel for us during the French Championships because I played doubles with her. And she had this letter of confirmation because that was the only way you could confirm anything. So we get out at the airport they didn't have wheelie bags or anything, and we had umpteen wooden rackets under our arms. We had bags here and these bags under this one. And off we went. We got in the bus and we went from Charles de Gaulle to the Champs-Elysees, or to the Arc de Triomphe. And we got there and as he said, oh, it's just down here. So we said, fine. So off the 3 of us trottled and we get to this place. There's a great big hole in the ground. And I said, Leslie, where's the hotel? And she said, oh, well, this is the right address. So with my limited French, I asked around and I said, would there be any other hotels that we might be able to... Oh, yes, so 2.5 hours later, having walked around the streets of Paris, we, having had nothing to drink, nothing to eat or anything, we discovered a hotel because it was difficult because they wouldn't accept the fact that we wanted to stay there for 2 weeks because we hoped that we'd get through. Leslie had a pretty good chance of getting through, and we did in the doubles. And so we eventually found a hotel. And of course there was no laundromats or anything like that in those days. And I said, Leslie, this is perfect. I said, we had this funny little room that had a bidet and the attic upstairs, and so we all shared, and we had a shower, at least we had that. So I said, Leslie, this is perfect. I said, we'll be able to soak our socks in the bidets, which we did. So we used to shove the bidet full, and we used to the maid used to go bananas. We used to do it. I said, we need it because otherwise we need our socks, and it takes 2 days to get dry. You know? So we went.
Do they still do that now?
Oh, don't.
I don't think so.
When they had the first laundromat in the UK, in England, it was by Queen's Club, and in Barons Court, and the queue was just unbelievable, and 3/4 of the queue were tennis players. Because we could just leave our clothes there and they could do them all. It was just wonderful, absolutely wonderful. You know. The only luxury we had with that was that at Wimbledon, if you were in it's a bit like upstairs, downstairs, really. If you were seated, you were in the top dressing room, the top ladies' dressing room. Then if you were sort of in the next rank, you were in the middle dressing room, and then if you were the lowly ones, you were in the lower dressing rooms, which was right down the bowels of the earth, you know.
It's like the Titanic.
It was, yeah, a bit like it. And the wonderful thing was that the ladies when we were in the top dressing room, they used to do our washing, which was just wonderful. That was a huge luxury, I have to tell you. So.
Thank you. I could listen to
Sorry,
you all
I'm
day.
sorry. Yeah, I know, I could talk all day. That's a trouble. Sorry.
Everybody's got the tennis that they would like to get to. I just want to say personally on behalf of AUB Group, thank you to both Sarah and to Judy, and thank you for all that you've done for not only women in sport but women in general, and the importance of continuing to have conversations around equity and pay equity in particular. That we were going to do is Sarah studied the guide for today, so those of you that are going to be heading over to the tennis, Sarah's got some recommendations for some of the matches to watch. So
yes, Sabalenka, she's on the rise and very quickly going to probably win Grand Slam. She's first up on court 3, followed by Tsitsipas. Yaz, do you have a better suggestion?
Run at court 15.
First match. Yasmin works at the Kim Kleisters Academy, and one of their players, Sarana Sostaya, is playing on court which
15.
And she is a great girl as well. Yeah. So if you can't get any shade on court 3, no, both matches are great, but do head to court 3 for the second match. Tsitsipas is a great player to watch. I've been watching him since he was 16. He's amazing. Thank you so much, Kate, and thanks everyone for being here.
Thank you very much.